mostly for the female brain and how they learn, our school system in the United States. And so when a boy can't hear his female teacher speaking, because he doesn't hear as well, because his ear structure is different than female students, and he gets distracted by looking at a fly flying around, immediately we think, well, he needs some Ritalin, he has ADHD. And so now all these boys, instead of just, they learn differently than girls, we're medicating them. And that is part of the demise of guys. Why would you want to grow up being a father if you're always the lesser gender, if you can't really ever learn it or become anything? Girls are graduating from high school, college, and graduate degrees at a much higher rate than boys are. Another factor is video game addiction is rampant. My son, my wife and I are always trying to be very careful without being overly controlling, but at the same time, teaching him about that. In fact, I will tell you an experiment we did. He became kind of a lab rat, but we let him, okay, I'll tell you. We did a week where we let him play all he wanted. We just said, you could play all you wanted. Now, of course, there's a difference between quantity and quality, so we didn't let him play whatever he wanted. Rated M for mature is M for a reason, and he's 15 now. We said you can play whatever you want. You don't have to come to family dinner. You don't have to come to family gatherings. Just whatever you want. And then the next week, he only got 30 minutes, and then he was required to do a lot of other things. I won't give you all the details. At the end of the week, at the 2 weeks, I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how close did you feel like to your parents? How close did you feel to your sisters? How close did you feel to God? How close did you feel, how well did you do on your homework? And he was totally honest. It was not even a comparison. He knew. I let him feel the effects in a controlled environment before he got out of the house. Does that make sense? But most of these boys aren't getting this regulation. Parents don't understand what these video games are doing to them, rewiring their brains. So, and I think pornography is really driving this as well, with the demise of fathers. So, and then we also have law and policy. I'll say a couple things about that. In the judicial system, in the family courts, judges, they don't really read the social science, and so they make their custody choices based on the traditions of their judicial fathers. And most of that is, needs to be with mom. So if there's any question, on average and for the most part, in the judicial system of shared parenting, they almost always default to the mother, because they see the father as inferior because every child needs a mother. Absolutely they do. But all the research actually shows otherwise. The best situation for children in divorce is to have shared parenting. Of course, that's absent of abuse and neglect, and assuming that it's not a factor. So even the judicial system, a wise man once says, law shapes culture and culture shapes law. And you can enter at any point in that cycle. And I think we just have got this boys, men, and fathers. It doesn't mean that women don't have their problems, clearly they do with exploitation and so many other things. But since the question is asking about fathers, there is a problematic trend, and it starts when they're boys, and they're getting kind of a free pass, and we're not understanding really gender differences. That's the issue of, I think, Leonard Sachs, who's a pediatrician and a psychologist, clinical psychologist. He's an overachiever. So, anyhow, that's my long answer, sorry.
I guess, women are responsible too. And the quality of the relationship before you get pregnant, are you really united? Have you really talked about having children? If there's problems in the marriage or the relationship, they're gonna come out. And women can be angry, resentful, blaming, and push away the father. So it can be very subtle or not so subtle. But women really need to take responsibility too for, are we really welcoming and encouraging and understanding the fathers are going to do a different job, but build the relationship, build the marriage. If the marriage is healthy, the parenting will be much healthier. Moving on. Okay, if women need a father in the family, what about those in households with two mothers? Is it still difficult?
Yes, it's still difficult. I had a woman I think it was last year when I was at the UN. It's the Commission on the Status of Women. That's where Lynn and I usually, well, you're there all the time, but that's when I see you. A lesbian woman from Kazakhstan asked me that question, and she was very sincere, and I really appreciated it. And I said, there's no doubt, I have no doubt in my mind that two mothers can love their sons or their daughters perfectly and completely and unconditionally. But we also have to acknowledge the fact that there really are gender differences. That mothering and fathering are distinct and separate phenomena. And this is just according to decades of research. And again, we don't want to have to get into the inferior versus superior, but if the research is showing that the optimal psychological, physical, emotional, relational, and cognitive nutrition is coming from what both moms and dads can bring, if in fact moms and dads both bring like a fruit and vegetables, then you can have 50 dads or 50 moms, but it's never going to, for example, let me give you the one on delayed menarche in girls. You could have 50 mothers, and they could act masculine, but it's not going to delay puberty development in that daughter, simply because they're acting that way. This is an evolutionary psychological phenomenon that even the psychologists can't fully explain about pheromones. They come up with all these theories, but it's happening, these trends. So I would never denigrate any parenting relationship, because I think there's no doubt that they can love them perfectly. But we can't act like that, well, I guess, I won't put it that way. I'll just say this. Then I would say if there is two moms, get as many father figures as you can and try to help them understand the respect and love for themselves, if it's a girl, for example. Father figures can do great things at the community level. I mean, there's such thing as godfathers, there's a whole lot of things. So if there are two moms, and I believe that maybe allowances need to be made so those daughters, for example, since I just spoke about father-daughter relationship, can still get the nutrition that comes from a father. So I could go on for that for a while, but I don't want to beat you to death. Okay.
I just think of, there's two students I had, well, one student, but she was living with another woman and they were parenting a child, and they shared with me a lot because they were really struggling, and it just became so clear to me. With my husband, I know I am more emotional, and my husband helps me see from a different perspective. We balance each other out. And these two ladies were just spiraling out of control in terms of their emotions. I really tried to help them because there's children involved. And they ended up breaking up. And that was just an eye-opener to me, that we really are different and we need to balance each other out emotionally as parents. Would the father-daughter relationship be the same for mothers and sons?
I'll just do a short one on this. Yes. So the research has found that the opposite gender parent, so father, daughter, mother, son, tends to set the tone for future relationships with the opposite sex. So mothers can set the tone really well. So you've probably heard this with boys, that they have mommy issues. That's a term that's kind of sometimes flippantly been thrown around. It usually means that he didn't get that sort of opposite sex parent, unconditional love and connection, just as I talked about with the father-daughter relationships. So the opposite sex parent, it's I guess in principle it's the same thing, but in application it looks differently. Mothers and sons, fathers and daughters. There's actually two good books. One's called Strong Father, Strong Daughters by Meg Meeker, and she has written another one called Strong Mother, Strong Sons. So yeah, mother plays just as critical a role as fathers. And also the same-sex parent, so like the father and son, he sets the tone for showing what it means to be a man, what it means to grow up as a man. And mother does the same thing for daughter. My wife is much better at talking about sexual development with my daughters because she's been through it. I haven't as a girl. I can talk about what boys are thinking, feeling, and deciding about girls. And I can help her understand how boys are thinking differently about sex and intimacy and the body. My wife can address things that I can, and I can address things that she can't. So, yeah. Do you want to say anything? Okay.
considering the cyclical, thank you, process of unresolved trauma effect on intimacy, how can men contribute to the healing or empowerment of a woman while self-preserving? Nice.
I deal with a lot of traumatized girls. And the absence of the father, as was shown earlier, in those families is really, it's just concurrent. Absent father, more likely to have sexual traumatization. Working in some of these homes, I've asked girls, and I've done research to find out who was sexually traumatized, people not living with parents. The number was 100%. And I've had hundreds of women go through these particular facilities. So sticking with the question, which I have a lot of trouble doing, how does a man help a woman? As Dr. Eric said in one of his examples, if the girl is asking, how do I look? And the dad is saying, fine, fine, or, whatever. The daughter is getting her self-image from that because he represents to her all men, just as I represent all women to our son, who is remarkably well-adjusted. So we certainly empower the opposite by validating and by making it clear that you have your place in this world that is very special. And if I, a woman, can love you, if Dr. Rarick, a man, can love you and see your beauty, then that's what's going to happen when you go out into the world.
Okay, this is, all right. This is our last, is this it or what our last question? This is it. We did so well. We answered everything.
If you